Hello class, welcome to HRMT 632, week 3. This week we're going to focus on perceiving ourselves and others plus emotions. Let's go and have a look at our agenda today. Our lecture will be in 3 parts. Part A, self-concept and development stages, plus some examples for the concept of self-concept. Part B talks about self-concept features plus procedures. Then we'll talk about perceptions plus global mindset. And part C, emotions and emotional intelligence. Let's go and get started with the first part, part A. I want to tell you a little bit background information about self-concept. Now, this is a beautiful paraphrasing. Self-concept is an overarching idea we have about, number one, who we are in terms of physical, emotional, social, as well as spiritual factors. So this is what you believe about yourself. And overarching means a very comprehensive idea that we have collected through our life. When we talk about self-concept, we need to talk about theory. Now, the theory tells us about, this is an overall idea that we have about who we are, and it includes both cognitive and affective judgments. So cognitive related to what you think about yourself, and affective means that the feelings associated with those thoughts. It is, of course, a multidimensional aspect. So when you can see yourself in different contexts, sometimes as a friend, sometimes a manager or employee, so it is multidimensional. It is mostly learned, not inherent. So if you remember when we talk about personality, now self-concept is dominantly learned, what we get from our environment and in our interaction with the outer world. It is influenced, however, by biological and environmental factors, like our personality type, but social interaction is the most important part of self-concept. And another thing is about self-concept develops through our childhood and grows and becomes more complete when we reach our adulthood or our maturity time. I want to tell you more about this part. Let's go and have a look at our childhood and the development procedure. When we talk about the development stages of self-concept, we start with early childhood, middle childhood, and adolescence. How it is shaped, how can we get a better picture of ourselves? Perhaps when we look at our early childhood, when you are like 0 to 2 years old, babies constantly need love, passion, support to get a good picture from their parents. So a positive sense of self is created during that time. When they reach 2, of course, language skills grow and you get a sense of me in your childhood. Around the years 3 to 4 years old, this is the time when you see yourself as someone separate with some unique features. Your self-images tend to be more descriptive when you describe some of your features as a child. Now, a person who is very kind, passionate, supportive, not jealous. And then preschoolers try to experience more independent and curious life. Now, all these steps, all these features, if you look at them carefully, are building a good image of your self-concept. Then, around the age of 5 to 6 year old, then you are moving from the feeling of me to another stage, a bigger stage, us. When you have your friends, when you make some new friends. And kindergartners at this time try to communicate their needs, their feelings with other people, with their parents. Now, when we go a little bit upper stage of our life, like middle childhood, 7 to 11 years old, here is the time children learn how to develop their sense of social values, communicate with their peers, work in smaller teams, share their toys with them, do something. And they prefer social groups. and try to make some comparisons in their groups. And that is the stage we're dealing with ideal and real safe. This is my ideal personality. How can I be distinguished from other people? Now, the last stage in our life when we improve or build our self-concept is in our adolescent. Here is the time we experiment more with our identity by comparing ourselves with the other people in society. Self-consciousness begins here. Some chemical changes happening in your brain. You think a little bit differently. You experience more freedom, independence, and of course, you try to engage in some competitive activities. Now, this isn't in your book, but I thought it's a good idea to see how the main concept of self-concept, or the main phenomenon of self-concept, is being shaped among us from early childhood to adulthood. Let me give you a bunch of examples for our self-concepts, some positive or negative, but before that, be careful, guys. Self-concepts are rarely all positive or negative. Sometimes we have both. Sometimes we are weaker in one or two. For example, if you're a husband who thinks of himself as a good father, and but sees his physical self as out of shape, or for example, if you think that you're a very nice father for your family, but not a good manager at your workplace. Now, there are some easy examples, like positive means that when you think you are an intelligent person, you are important in your family, community, you're an excellent spouse, friend, you are a caring person, a hardworking person. These, when we view ourselves like these people. So there are some positive examples. But when we refer to negative ones, for example, in some situations you think that you're stupid or you're slow. Sometimes they put all the things on you. You're like a burden on this community, an extra person, unfortunately, or you're a terrible friend. Sometimes you're not approachable, lazy, incompetent, etc. Now, these are some negative self-concepts. Now, I hope this part acts as a kind of background towards the main concepts in our chapter 3. Here is the time we want to go and talk, but before that, self-care strategies is something that we're going to do in the class. Now, welcome to part B. In part B, we want to go to our book. Before that, just was an orientation, background information to our book chapter. Now is the time we want to go to part B. Now, when we look at your book, there's a beautiful chart here, self-concept characteristics plus processes. First of all, I want to talk about the 3 important characteristics: complexity, consistency, and clarity. Then we talk about its processes. Now, when we look at the first thing is complexity. So you can pause the video sometimes here and then take some notes if you want, because I'll try to give you some examples to want to make sure that these concepts are clear. Now, when we talk about complexity, the first thing is that when we refer to the number of distinct and important roles, or let's say identities, we obtain or we think we have in society. You're a student, right? You can be a friend. You're a daughter of your father. You're a sport fan. You're a good driver. So you can see that complexity means that when we have different roles, and all those roles build the main meaning of self-concept. Complexity is very important. In a very easy language, it means the number of identities plus their separation. And when I say separation, it means that because there are different roles, right? When you obtain different roles in society. Now, this is very important. Just keep in mind, sometimes also people shift their self-concept. And they get a different role. Like when you're at home, you're just husband or wife, right? But when you take the SkyTrain and now you go to your workplace, during this transition period, when you reach your workplace, then you're an employee or a manager. And of course, when you look at yourself, you can be a different person. Maybe at home you are really kind, supportive. At your workplace, you try to be more punctual, a little bit sometimes strict, right? Or sometimes, so these different roles can contradict or can be similar. Just keep in mind. Now, the next thing that I want to talk is the importance of consistency. And a very simple language means that how similar are you in different roles or identities. So that's also one important feature. If you are kind and supportive at home, are you kind and supportive at workplace, or you're a different person? And if yes, how many times, in how many situations, in how many scenarios you keep this attitude? You are a kind, supportive person. Now, the next thing that I want to talk, or another thing that we can mention is that how confident are you with your personality, with your understanding of yourself? Clarity is a very important feature. And clarity in a simple language is that how well do you know yourself? How well do you know your self-concept? And clarity means that when everything or all your features are defined to you, are clear to you, stable to you, the meaning of who I am is something you can easily describe. If you can describe yourself, if you are fully aware of your personality, identities, then your clarity is very high. When you have some doubts about yourself, then the clarity is very low. Now, these are very important for your future. When you want to, number one, increase your awareness of your self-concept, always think about these important features. How many roles do I have? Complexity. Am I stable? Consistency. Do I really know about all these features? Am I clear? Clarity. And then when you want to hire someone, when you want to train someone, keep these elements in your mind. The next thing that I want to talk is about, these are the features here. If you want to have a look, pause the video with more clarification. The outcomes of self-concept. For example, if you are a person with high self-concept or complexity, means you have different roles, different identities. Is it good at workplace? The answer is yes. Of course, you can be more adaptive person. Why? Because you experienced different roles in the past. Of course, you can work with more diverse networks. Sometimes the opposite happens. You can be more stressful because you tried a lot of things, and that can create a negative effect on you. And then, of course, you will have someone with more resources. But how about someone with less complex selves? Sometimes this is good. Why? Because you can be a more focused person. You don't have a bunch of roles. You have just a few roles in your life. So perhaps you can have a better performance, right? So, and the last thing, if you're really clear about yourself and you know yourself very well, high self-concept clarity, of course you can have a better performance, or you can be a better leader, or develop teams, solve conflicts, etc. After talking about the core concepts of self-concept or its characteristics, it's the time to talk about the processes. And when we talk about process, is that how these self-concepts remain with us, how we manage them, how we tolerate them, how we process them inside us. So there are four concepts that we can think of. I begin with number one, self-enhancement. In a simple language, is what goes on in your mind, and that is your self-concept. And this is your motivation to have a positive self-concept. So be careful, it is something positive about yourself in your mind, that I'm a lucky person, I'm a supportive person, and you carry all those features in your mind. So self-enhancement happens at your mental level, mind level. And this is the image we have about ourselves, and we repeat it every day in our life. Is it positive? Absolutely, it can be positive because it improves your confidence. It gives you a better feeling of can-do attitude. I can do that. But sometimes the opposite can happen. If you really praise yourself in your mind, then you might do something dangerous or over risky, and that could be the negative part of it. But the next thing that we want to talk about, self-verification, happens at the interaction level. When you talk with your friends, when you're in your company and have a conversation with your colleagues. We do this a lot every day in our life. All these two. When you wake up, when you want to dress up and go to work, you're always thinking about yourself, what I want to do today, who am I, how positively, right? But when you reach there at your workplace, then you have an interaction with your colleagues. Now, we always try to confirm and maintain our self-concept. So write down these two keywords. When you want to confirm and maintain, how can we do that? In interaction with people. We communicate with them. We talk during the break time. We try to talk about our achievements. We talk about how we made a good decision last week for a project. And all these things improve your, or what you're doing is called self-verification. What's the process? What is happening? Self-verification. Is it related to self-concept? Absolutely. It builds your concept. It confirms it, maintains it. Another key word that you can keep in mind is the importance of feedback. So you receive feedback, right? Or you exchange feedback. And that feedback, positively or negatively, is a form of self-verification. Now, how can we relate this to the world of organizational behavior? Be careful, guys. Of course, when you receive feedback or exchange it, sometimes you want to keep some part of information or you want to reject it, right? So, okay, remembering and keeping information related to your self-concept at your workplace is related to OB. If you have a high verification, okay, you really know about your positive things, and you've already proved it at your workplace, so perhaps you won't listen to a lot of people, right? If they have a suggestion for you, that can be something bad, right? Because you believe that you know everything and you have proved this before, so you might not be willing to accept others' feedback easily. And when we are in our organizations, when we have interactions every day, sometimes they improve your self-verification, sometimes the opposite happens. And that is why these are related to OB. Now, the third thing is self-evaluation. We always evaluate ourselves, the status of being, what is happening right now. There are three key words: self-esteem, self-efficacy, and locus of control. So when we talk about self-esteem, it happens when we have self-appraisals, when we do something good every day and we admire ourselves. And when they're all collected, when you finish a project, when you have a beautiful conversation with someone, when you help someone at your workplace, all these self-appraisals or self-admirations will build something called self-esteem. So self-esteem is a collection of all those self-appraisals. Another thing that happens for us is self-efficacy. Self-efficacy is more practical. Self-efficacy happens to you when you know that you can complete a task. It's a can-do attitude. It shows your abilities, expectations, and resources. So self-efficacy means that if you complete 2 or 3 projects today at your workplace, if you helped 5 customers very well, okay, or if you are assigned a project If your self-efficacy is high, so perhaps you believe that you can finish the project easily based on your previous experiences. So I can do that. I can run it. If they give me a new role, I can handle it. I will succeed in that project. So self-efficacy is more practical. And when you're doing this, you are evaluating yourself. It improves your evaluation. So you get a better picture of yourself. Why? Because this is like a test, a measurement tool, that you get a better evaluation of yourself. So it is more like task-specific, task-oriented. The next thing, and then when you look at these two, for example, if you are a person with higher self-efficacy, I can complete a lot of projects. Of course, you have a better, more positive self-evaluation. Okay, just see the relation here. And locus of control is the time that is our general beliefs about the amount of control that we can have over our personal life events. Again, be careful, personal life events. Some people call it internal, sometimes external. If it is internal, so you believe that what is happening around you is more related to you. And they're mainly by your own personal abilities. But sometimes some people think oppositely. They believe that the external or the environment will change their events or have different consequences. This is important. For example, I want to give you my example. I do believe that when I give you one project, like assignment number 1, if you guys want to succeed, if you guys want to get a better mark or learn better, so my role is important here. My role that if I give you a better instruction sheet, if I guide you, if I provide you with feedback, you guys can get better results. So when I look at the consequence, I see my role here. So my locus of control is internal, because I believe that if I do something, you will achieve something better. And that is also part of my self-evaluation. So people who are focusing more on internal features have more positive self-evaluation. Now, the last thing, or the last process happens, we build, maintain, manage, run. Our self-concept is our social self. When we believe that we belong to some groups, or we make some emotional ties with other beliefs. This drive, it says that when we motivate all individuals, the main factors can be some interpersonal and collective relationships. So a social self works more in interpersonal, means your communication with others, as well as collective, when you work in a team. Okay, and then when you work in a team and you do really well, that is called social self, and of course it builds your self-concept. You get a better picture. So we can say, let's say, number 1 is in your mind, number 2 in your interaction at your workplace, when you talk with a colleague, again, in a very small context. Self-evaluation, when you use a bunch of measurement tools to make sure that you are doing well with your self-esteem. And social self works at a bigger level, the level of group, sometimes emotional ties that you make. For example, you believe that you're an MBA graduate student from a UCW. That gives you a connection, that gives you a feeling of belonging. Or you're a Canadian student, you belong to a rich culture in Asia. We get a better or a different level of self-concept. The last part that I want to talk in part B is about, now, why do we talk about self-concept? Do we see it in business? Absolutely. If you think of marketing, advertisement strategies, branding, workplace performance. These are the four main areas that we need to know. Number one, our self-concept, and also know more about people around us. So write down these four keywords. They might be very useful for your future. Self-concept in marketing and how it influences consumer behavior. Okay, that is one thing. So we can know what our customers or consumers really think about. Then the marketing provides that. Brands, companies, they always try to target certain identities, younger generation, fashionable items. So of course, when they know about your self-concept or your identities, they try to provide you with better services. The next thing is that we usually tend to believe that our purchases will help establish our identity. Many people buy specific cars, BMW, Mercedes-Benz, or specific iPhones, or they believe that iPhone gives them a good identity. They have a feeling of belonging to Apple company. So self-concept is here. Brand conceptions, how brands are treating or affecting customers and their employees, and how their friends and family view this. This is also self-concept. The next thing that we need to talk about now, when we get familiar with core concepts of self-concept, another keyword is perception, the process of receiving information about and making sense of the world around us. We don't want to just rely on our self-concept and that's all. We want to get something from the environment. We want to understand others' self-concept features, right? So when we talk about perception, we're talking about this process. In a very simple language, is that when we decide which information to notice, how to categorize this information in our mind, or how to interpret them inside our mind, this is called perception. There are two important processes and biases, and these are happening at workplace, so please keep them in mind. The first one is stereotyping, and number two is attribution theory. These are two very important for your future workplace, job interview, or your knowledge of OB. When we talk about, be careful guys, these are perceptual processes and biases. So okay, sometimes we might face some bias. Stereotyping, if I just want to show you this part, is the perceptual process in which we assign characteristics or traits to other people. Based on, for example, it can be based on their membership or social categories. When we meet them, we can give them different labels. For example, when we look at professors, when we look at engineers, when we see a manager, what comes to your mind? Perhaps you believe that they are smarter, they are organized, they are knowledgeable. These are the things or the labels you give them, right? This is called stereotyping. It's one form of perceiving the world or other people around us. Of course, it has roots in our background, in our previous experiences, but the thing is that why do we follow this stereotyping? The first thing is that we as human beings try to follow a categorical thinking, and that is in order to save our energy, in order to put people in different categories. So when we look at them or communication, we try to put them in different categories because that would be easier for us when we label them. These people are smart people, these are educated people, for example, etc., etc. The second thing that is that this is something inherent in us, and when we meet people, we don't know a lot about them, right? So when we put them in different categories, this fills some part of information that this activity gives us more information, so we can predict them better. We get a better picture of them. That's another reason we do stereotyping. Or another thing is that this builds our self-enhancement or supports our self-enhancement and social identity. When we get a better picture of people, so we can communicate better with them, okay? And it is related to your self-concept. Now, let me tell you a little bit more about this. How do we do this? How do we do stereotyping? This is not in your slide, but I want you to do that. The first thing, we put people in different categories, and that is called a categorization, right? This is one thing, or this is one element of stereotyping. Another thing is called homogenization. And when we homogenize people, it means that we compare them. We believe that this person has some similar feature to other people, and that's why we put them in a similar category. Or sometimes we differentiate people. So differentiation is another aspect of stereotyping. We believe that these guys are good people, these are, for example, bad people. That is a little bit risky part, and research shows that men do this a little bit more often than women. Okay, this is just based on research. Now, what are some problems with this? Is it okay? Well, no. This is a form of a perceptual bias, and this happens at workplace. When you look at or when you talk to an accountant, what comes to your mind? These people love their desks. They just work with numbers, a very boring job. They can't communicate really well, or they just look at people as money makers or whatever, a very boring working attitude. So this is a problem that can happen. And of course, when negative stereotyping happens a lot, this will decrease people's self-efficacy. So their ability to do something can be limited. Okay. Now, this happens at different levels, individual level. Sometimes you look at your departments inside your company. One department, you give it some labels, another department, positive or negative. Okay. Now, another problem is that it is like an unfair discrimination. Now, the final thing that I want to tell you is that stereotyping is really related to a categorical thinking. This happens to us. This has been with us from our childhood. But how can we do that? Or is there any way to solve this? The answer is that, of course, some companies provide some training to open the eyes among their employees and to stop, for example, negative stereotyping. And of course, there are some training programs for this. Now, after stereotyping, let's go and talk about attribution theory. And as the name shows, when you attribute, you connect, you relate. Now, this is talking about a cause and effect of a relationship at workplace. This is also a perceptual process of deciding whether an observed behavior or what you see, what you feel is caused by something internal or external. That's why we have internal attribution versus external one. Attribution also has some rules, but I don't want to talk about them today. The attribution process is important because in our workplace, we see the cause and effect of a relationship. Should we praise it? Should we blame it? For example, let me give you an example. If you think of a coworker who doesn't complete his or her tasks on time, or for example, has some issues with task completion. Now, there are two ways we can think of the cause, right? The first thing is that You can believe that this person is not skillful, lacks some knowledge, or maybe lazy, and that's why her projects aren't complete. Now, if you think like this, if you perceive this event like this, you are working on internal attributions. You are attributing this to her internal or personality, knowledge, whatever. But sometimes, how about, okay, you can believe that she hasn't had enough sources to complete this project. She was alone. She didn't receive any support during this project. Now, if you think like this is called an external attribution. You are thinking about other, things beyond that person's control. This is very important, so be careful. Are you going to relate it to personal things or situational factors? That can be discussed in attribution. Now, the next thing, how can we improve our perceptions? This is very important, and almost we're going to finish this part quickly. Of course, by improving our self-awareness. We have some tests that you guys can check. One of them is called IAT. And this test is called Implicit Association Test. Very useful for increasing or getting a better picture of your self-concept and perceptions. And also Johari window that I'll talk about it later. The next thing is that meaningful interactions at your workplace can improve your self-concept and better person. And when we talk about a very simple language, when we talk about meaningful interaction, is any activity in which people engage in valued or meaningful, not very minimal activities. For example, you talk with a colleague and ask about what she did to succeed this project, or what she did in terms of communication with the social media customers. So she explains that you learn something valuable for your project. So this also will improve your self-efficacy because you get the knowledge, ability, how to do something. Of course, it improves your self-enhancement because you think that you know it, you're more knowledgeable. This improves your social self because you had a very meaningful communication with that person. And then when you do it right, you get the good result. That improves your self-esteem. It shows that your evaluation was successful and very high. I hope this example is helpful because you guys can get a better picture here. There's one way we can improve. I love this aspect. So if you want to just have a look at it, it's very useful. This is also one model. We can improve our self-concept and also others' self-concept and get a better perception in our society. This model has been designed by two psychologists, Joseph Loft and Harry Ingram. That's why Joseph means Joe and Harry means Harry. So when you put it together, it's Johari window. It has 4 important elements. This is a beautiful picture that I want you to read it at your book on page 76 and 77 plus 78. So these 3 pages. This is a model of self-awareness in a very simple language, a model of self-awareness. It has different windows when you look at it, but we need to begin from this area, open area. This open area means that it's known to you. So what you know about yourself, and perhaps what people know about you. Like you're a kind person, a supportive person. You know this very well, so your clarity is high, and other people have a good picture of you, right? But how about the other 3 areas in this model? There could be a kind of a blind area here. Now, blind area, refers to information that is known to others. Be careful, known to others, but not to you. So people, when you have a presentation, people see something in your performance. that you are unaware of. Okay, this is called a blind area. Now, another thing, for example, we can refer to is the hidden area. Okay, now information known to you but unknown to others. It's only like a secret inside you. You know about yourself. An unknown area, that's also a beautiful part, includes your values, beliefs, talents, whatever you have that are unknown to you and others. So when we look at this model, if we create this model, and the more we work in these three areas, the open area gets bigger, improves, and we can develop that. Okay, so what is the main purpose of working on this model or knowing this model? That we try to get bigger the open area, so we can get a better picture of ourselves and we increase our awareness. Feedback, of course, is another important thing. So if you want to write down in your notebook when we talk about the Johari window, the importance of feedback is dominant here, because feedback, when you receive feedback, both may be positive or negative, that will reduce your blind area, right? So you can see the blind area a little bit more and more. This is another thing that we can, for example, work on if you want to improve your self-awareness. The final thing in your chapter number 3, before we go to our last part, would be when we talk about mindset, perception, self-concept awareness, we're not just thinking about personal level or in a group level. Let's go and think, something bigger when we talk about it at a global mindset level. A lot of companies in the world try to run some workshops, training, symposiums, or they invite some guest speakers to improve this feeling. So we reach a global mindset, not just our company, but our company in relation with other companies, my country and other countries. What is happening among all these companies or countries, and why is it important? Because we can better empathize with customers, suppliers, or other people dealing with this business. And of course, we learn a lot. Some new information happen on the road. So the thing is that when we think of global mindset, we are moving from personal level of awareness to something more global, and that is called global mindset. We go to our part C, is the last part. And part C covers some important concepts in our chapter number 4, the more focus on emotions. Now, what are emotions, attitudes, and the importance of emotional intelligence? Now, emotions means, number 1, a psychological, behavioral, and physiological episodes that create a state of readiness. They are spontaneous, happen maybe at the right time. So those are experiences that you have with different events or scenarios. There are, of course, brief episodes. You can be really happy, and then after 5 minutes, so it gets down, or really surprised. So these are brief episodes when we talk about that. Okay. So, and also they're mostly non-conscious, so you're unaware of, and they suddenly happen. For example, when we talk about attitudes, they are a little bit different. But I have a very simple question for you. Is it possible to make a decision without emotion? Just think of this question. Some people say, yes, I make my decisions without referring to my emotion. This is not emotional. The answer is that is not possible. Reason without emotion is neurologically impossible. All the important decisions you make in your life, there's something related to emotion. So think about it in your personal life as well as workplace. If you go to your book on page 86, 87, we talk more about the importance of emotions, or emotions at at workplace, right? So when we talk about emotions and we say that they are like experiences, real life experiences, they could be physiological. If I get back to my previous slide, you might say, what is physiological, teacher? I want to tell you quickly. Like you get your heart rate increases, right? Or your blood pressure. A psychological means what happens in your mind when you look at something or when you experience something. So you might also show some reactions. For example, you laugh, you clap, you stand up. All those are behavioral things, and that's why these are parts of emotion. But let's go and have a look at a beautiful model of emotions that I want you to keep it in your mind. And when we talk about them, these two keywords happen at two levels. Number one, activation is important. So always think about how your feelings, how your emotions are activated, and how are they evaluated. So number one, okay, level of activation is important. And all emotions evaluate the situation sometimes as positive or negative. Now, if you look at this chart, for example, what is your emotion? Really excited, elated, or enthusiastic? Okay, imagine this is your emotion. We can look at it at two perspectives. Number one, what is the activation? The activation is low or is it high? It means that, and the word activation means the status of your readiness. Okay, how ready are you for it? How they motivate you to do something. So write down activation means the status of your readiness, or for example, how they make you to do something or motivate you to do something. Okay, for example, sometimes you have a strong, sometimes a little bit weaker, reactions. Now, excited, of course, the activation is high. You want to do something, you want to jump, you want to run, something. You show, something with very high activation. And when you evaluate it, is it something positive or negative? Of course, it has a positive load for you. Therefore, this goes to this category, high activation, positive emotions, and there are some examples. The opposite saying, for example, when the emotion is that tired, bored, or just the emotion that you feel when you watch a movie. So you feel tired or you show the emotions of tiredness. Of course, the activation is very low because you don't want to do anything that time, or you aren't ready, you aren't motivated to do something. It made you tired, so it's low. Basically, tired is not something positive. It's a little bit negative. You are unhappy, gloomy. So have a look at this. This is a good model to have a look at, because when you look at your emotions, always think about these two features. What is the activation level of this, or what is the evaluation part of this? And why is it important? Because this also gives you a better idea where your emotions are coming from and how can we provide them with better treatment. And when we look at attitudes versus emotions, they are different. Attitudes are more like the categories of beliefs and feeling, clusters. Attitudes means that when you had a bunch of positive emotions in the past by watching, for example, Bollywood movie, you got a lot of different emotion. The emotion of the positive emotion of, for example, you got excited. You also you got happy with the results. After a time, you put all those positive things in your mind in a cluster of beliefs and feelings. So when someone says, hey, what's your idea about Bollywood movies? So your attitude towards Bollywood movies is more positive. So you have better ideas about them. So in a very simple language, the collection of our for example, emotions or positive or negative experiences create a unique attitude in our mind. However, emotions are more based on your experiences at the moment. Attitudes are more judgmental and we do them in our mind. So conscious reasoning, we have some reasons for our attitudes. However, emotions are more non-conscious. You react something, positively or negatively sometimes. And of course, attitudes are more stable. They are longer with us than emotions. Now, the last thing that I want to talk in today's lecture, we want to make sure is only about less than an hour, is the importance of emotional intelligence. EI, a very good topic if you want to think about your future or if you want to do some research. This is a very rich area in research. Now, emotional intelligence in a very simple language, your ability to recognize and understand emotions, number one, in you, yourselves, number one, and number two, others. So just keep in mind these two are important, and your ability to use this awareness to do what? To manage it. These are the keywords that I highlighted. So number one, to recognize, identify, understand you and others, plus understanding is not enough. We need to learn how to manage them properly too. Our book talks about this. If you want to say which page you want to read more in chapter 4, it's on page 94 and 95 when we talk about emotional intelligence. Now, emotional intelligence in your book, it's a set of abilities, number one, to perceive and express emotion and assimilate emotion in thought. We can relate it, our emotion to our thought, understand and reason with emotion, and regulate emotion. So understanding emotion, regulating emotion, all emotion. And EI is very important. So just keeping in mind, and of course, there are some important aspects of EI or some important dimensions. Now, the first dimension that I want to talk about is awareness of your own emotion. This is very important, that people with higher emotional intelligence have better awareness of their own emotions. Now, let's start with yourself first. So number one, recognizing, understanding yourself and your emotions at this level. Then after that, we go to managing. So don't go to this part. So like A, and then B is here. After understanding our emotions, we need to be able to manage them. So management of our own emotion. We always manage them, right? Sometimes we stop them. Sometimes we overexpress them, our emotions. Is it the right time to do that? No. Not in this job interview, maybe I can do it later, or yes, this is the right time, I will do it softly, strictly, gently. This is the way you manage your emotions. If you can do that, it shows that you have a good knowledge and performance of your emotional intelligence. So being aware is also very important, but managing your emotions is another thing. Then after ourselves, we go to others. Awareness of the others, of course, is important because it improves the feeling of empathy. So the word empathy is in this category, in the green box. When we show empathy, when we know we can understand other people's emotions, therefore we can express a better empathy here. And then management of others' emotions. This is a little bit hard part. I know we can't do it easily. Most psychologists have this ability, so they have a consultation session with people and try to look at their problems and perhaps offer them. Be careful. The last thing that I want to tell you, this is like hierarchy, and when I say hierarchy, it means that if you want to improve your emotional intelligence, if you want to make sure that your emotional intelligence, EI, is working effectively, you need to begin from yourself. Okay, so not from understanding others or managing others. No, first of all, yourself, then managing yourself, then people, and managing people. Just keep in mind, a hierarchy is very important. Is this something very important in the workplace? Absolutely. A lot of companies, like even one insurance company in Canada called Fidelity Canada, is running a lot of training sessions for their employees to want to make sure that these guys are doing well. In Asia, we have, in India, for example, Indian Railways is working hard to make sure their managers, leaders, employees are fully aware with their emotions and management techniques. Emotional intelligence, of course, makes you a better team worker, a better job performer, better leader, better decision maker, and overall your mindset becomes more creative. There are a lot of things that I told you. How can we improve our emotional intelligence? But the last thing that we are going to say goodbye is that emotional intelligence at workplace can be discussed in two things. Number one, job satisfaction. It is related to emotional intelligence. Beautiful topics. And organizational commitment, OC. Keep these two things in mind. And when we talk about EI at workplace, these two things are important. Now, job satisfaction is at the personal level, a person's evaluation of their job and work context, your emotions there, and the way you see your job, what are your attitudes towards your job, what is happening inside your mind. This is called job satisfaction. But organizational commitment is an individual's emotional attachment to. The word attachment is important. Identification with, involvement in an organization. Now, the context is bigger than individual. The context here is you and your team, you and the image of your company, and the emotions, feelings, attitudes you share with that. Do you have a positive attitude? Do you express positive emotions there? What is the activation level of your emotions? What is your overall evaluation, positive or, for example, negative? All these things are important, and this is you and your company, you and the relation to your company. Just keep in mind that when we talk about EI, these two concepts are very important. Now, thank you very much for listening. What I want you to think overall is that this week we tried to cover two chapters, part of chapter 4, almost done, but chapter 3 and chapter 4. What I want you guys to think about is that how to increase our awareness at different levels. The first thing is personal, and then our organization. Okay, and I want you to think about these concepts, and in our next class we're going to a little bit work on treatment. How can we improve our self-awareness? How can we maintain it? What do you know about yourself? And if there are some gaps in terms of self-concept, emotions, how can we bridge them? So we're going to do something in the class to make sure that you guys get a better picture of yourself. Thank you very much, and have a beautiful day.